there was some kind of pact. There was a Russian pact between Fischer thought there was a pact between a lot of players, all the Russians.
It's called a plot.
A plot.
Or
Okay.
in German, a complot.
Okay. Well, okay.
So use please the right word.
Okay. These two were in the plot. Petrosian and Geller, no? They were in the plot. Petrosian and Geller. They were in the plot.
Okay, they pretend they play a game. Okay.
Yeah, they pretend. Okay.
Het verhaal van het complot van Willemstad is dat 3 van de 5 Sovjets, Geller, Keres en Petrosian, onderling afspraken elkaar op remise te houden. Zo zou energie worden gespaard voor de partijen tegen de anderen.
It was a valid reason, I think, what Fischer stated. But even so, I don't think he was in good form in the tournament.
Imagine for a second that you were sitting down to solve like the most complex, multi-layered mathematical equations of your entire life.
Oh man, just the thought of that is stressful.
Right. But now, imagine you have to do this while trapped inside a tropical sauna for 2 months straight.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds less like a game and more like a psychological experiment designed to break someone.
Totally.
You're basically asking the human brain to perform at the absolute limits of its capability, while the physical body is desperately just trying to survive the environment.
And that tension, that exact breaking point between mind and body is what we're looking at today. Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are stepping right into the 1962 Curaçao Candidates Tournament. And let me tell you, this was a high-stakes, Cold War intellectual battle.
Yeah.
It is just packed with cheating accusations, secret hotel room alliances, actual fistfights, and just a massive test of sheer human endurance.
The stakes here really, they cannot be overstated. You had 8 of the greatest chess minds in the entire world all gathered on this one island.
Yeah, just an insane lineup.
Right. And they were there to play 28 grueling rounds, the ultimate prize. The right to challenge Mikhail Botvinnik for the World Chess Championship. It was the absolute pinnacle of the sport.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because we have this tiny Caribbean island hosting a monumental clash of minds, and honestly, the logistics alone are completely fascinating.
Oh, they are. Curaçao in 1962 had a local chess community of maybe 150 active players, tops.
Wow, that is tiny.
Extremely tiny. Yet somehow, this little branch of the Netherlands Antilles Chess Federation managed to win the bid to host the tournament. And they raised an enormous budget for the time, $50,000.
Which was huge back then.
Massive. And they did it without any outside help. They pulled it off through local lotteries and by selling special first-day stamp covers to collectors.
So they basically just willed a world-class sporting event into existence.
Pretty much, yeah.
And the extremes of the setup are just wild. So inside the Hotel Curaçao Intercontinental, the organizers built this completely noiseless masterpiece of a playing hall.
State of the art for the time.
Exactly. They had air conditioning providing cool breezes, and they debuted a world-first electronic clock. And it was synchronized with the public clock outside so fans could track the moves.
It was a total technological and organizational triumph inside that room. But the moment you stepped outside the hall, you hit a literal wall of heat.
Oh, yeah.
It was May and June in the Caribbean. Temperatures were routinely hitting, 32 to 34 degrees Celsius. That's well into the 90s Fahrenheit, with virtually 100% humidity.
And then there's the water issue. I found this detail so funny. But also Offa. Curaçao didn't really have freshwater sources, so the whole island relied on desalinated seawater.
Right, which takes some getting used to.
Yeah, the Soviet player Tigran Petrosian actually tasted it and complained that compared to his beloved Lake 7 back home, this island water tasted like, quote, bad medicine.
Which is a very polite way of saying it was absolutely awful.
Yeah, I bet. It just makes me think of, running an ultra marathon in a swamp. How much did this physical environment actually dictate the chess being played on the board?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the environment dictated almost everything.
Really?
Yeah, because at this elite level of chess, the intellectual capacity of the players is relatively matched. So what separates the winner from the loser in a 28-round marathon isn't just knowing better moves, it's physical endurance.
Right, the brain needs fuel.
Exactly. The brain consumes a massive amount of calories and oxygen during deep calculation. If your body is exhausted from the heat, your brain misfires, you make blunders. And Petrosian, he understood this better than anyone.
What did he do?
To prepare for this tropical marathon, he spent hours every single day on the ski slopes back home.
Wait, skiing? That sounds totally counterintuitive. How does freezing weather prepare you for a tropical sauna?
It wasn't about acclimating to the temperature, it was about building raw cardiovascular stamina. Petrosian basically treated chess like a physical athletic event. He knew his heart and lungs needed to be machines just to pump enough oxygen to his brain during a 7-hour game.
Okay, that makes total sense when you frame it as a biological limitation, which brings us to someone who maybe didn't quite grasp the reality of the situation. The 19-year-old American sensation Bobby Fischer.
Oh yes, Fischer's arrival in Curaçao is legendary. He had just come off a triumphant victory at the interzonal tournament in Stockholm. He beat the field there by a massive margin.
So he was riding high.
Oh, totally. He was universally considered the favorite, and he certainly acted like it.
The transformation in his appearance alone was striking, right?
Yeah, completely.
He ditched his usual casual jeans and sweaters and showed up looking like a totally different person. He was wearing these fashionable, tailored suits.
Dressing the part of the champion.
Exactly. He was walking around with his supreme confidence. In fact, he was so sure he was going to win that he was already telling people he was writing a book about his upcoming world championship match with Botvinnik.
Wow.
And he was planning a world tour as the reigning champion before the tournament even started.
It's the classic narrative of hubris, isn't it? He was looking entirely past the 28 rounds he actually had to play against the best, most hardened Soviet grandmasters.
And the reality check was brutal.
Absolutely brutal. Fischer shockingly lost his first 2 games right out of the get.
So the Golden Boy arrives in custom suits, practically planning his victory parade, and immediately gets 2 zeros on the scoreboard.
Yeah, not the start he wanted. He ended up finishing a distant 4th.
So Fischer is brought down by his own ego, basically. But there's another tournament favorite who is brought down by something completely out of his control, right? Mikhail Tal.
Yeah, the story of Tal here is really sad. Tal was a beloved figure. He was the former world champion, universally known as the magician from Riga.
Yeah.
He had this brilliant, chaotic, attacking style.
People loved watching him play.
They did. And Tal was heavily favored alongside Fischer, but he arrived in Curaçao in terrible shape. He had just undergone a serious kidney operation right before the tournament.
And the physical toll it took on him was obvious. He lost 3 games in a row, which was completely unheard of for a player of his caliber.
It really was.
He eventually had to withdraw from the tournament entirely after the 3rd quarter because of severe illness, and he was hospitalized locally.
It was a heartbreaking situation for the chess world, you know, watching this brilliant mind betrayed by a failing body. But amidst all this fierce Cold War rivalry, we actually get a surprisingly beautiful human moment out of it.
Yeah, this part is amazing. You have Fischer, who is widely documented as being incredibly prickly, self-involved, and fiercely anti-Soviet.
Right.
But when Tal was lying in that hospital bed, Bobby Fischer was the one who went to visit him.
Yeah, Fischer was actually noted as being a welcome guest in Tal's hospital room, it completely breaks the caricature we often have of Fischer as this isolated robotic competitor.
It really does.
He went out of his way to offer comfort to his greatest rival. It reminds you that beneath the geopolitical tensions and the intense competition, these guys shared a very rare brotherhood. They were the only ones who truly understood the crushing pressures they were all facing.
That's a great point. But we probably shouldn't get too sentimental here, because that brotherhood was about to be severely tested. Let's talk about the scandal that basically set the chess world on fire after this tournament, the infamous draw combine.
Oh, man. This is the controversy that Curaçao is most remembered for. After the tournament ended, Fischer didn't just quietly accept his 4th-place finish.
Of course not.
No, he went public in a massive way. He published an explosive article in Sports Illustrated and Life magazine.
He claimed that the top Soviet players, specifically Tigran Petrosian, Efim Geller, and Paul Keres, were operating as a cartel. He said they were audibly coaching each other during games, and most importantly, prearranging draws whenever they played against one another.
It was a bombshell accusation. I mean, it struck at the very integrity of the World Championship cycle.
But wait, how is a prearranged draw not just match fixing by a different name? If they pre-planned it, they're still rigging the stamina game, right?
Well, this raises an important question about the rules of the time. The consensus among chess historians, and this was essentially confirmed by the players themselves later on, is that the combine was real. But we have to clarify the mechanics of it.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Fischer didn't claim that the Soviets were throwing games, meaning they weren't intentionally losing to artificially boost one specific person's score.
So no one was taking a dive.
Right. What they did do was agree to quick, bloodless draws against each other. A draw just splits the point, giving half a point to each player.
Ah, so it's a loophole. They aren't altering the win column directly, but they are manipulating the physical toll of the tournament.
Exactly. Remember that tropical heat? The 28-round marathon?
Oh yeah, the 100% humidity.
In that environment, preserving your physical and mental energy was a massive advantage. If Petrosian, Geller, and Keres agree to draw their games in 15 minutes, they effectively grant themselves a rest day.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Fischer is out there grinding for 7 hours in a brutal endgame, completely exhausting himself.
There is actually a highly revealing kind of snarky quote from Paul Keres when he was asked about this strategy. He said, quote, "Elementary mathematics shows that a draw can only benefit the score of someone in the lower half of the table."
Which is basically saying, why would we risk losing to each other when we're already at the top of the leaderboard?
Right.
It's incredibly cynical, but strategically, under the rules of a round-robin tournament at the time, it's flawless.
Flawless for them, but totally devastating for everyone else. And the victim wasn't just Fischer. There was another Soviet player, Viktor Korchnoi, who was left completely out of this elite trio's cartel.
Yeah, Korchnoi had it rough. He started the tournament brilliantly. He actually won an exhausting 101-move game early on.
101 moves in that heat.
Yeah, just brutal. But because he was fighting tooth and nail in every single round, while the other three were taking these prearranged rest days, he completely faded. The physical exhaustion caught up with him, and he dropped out of contention.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because you might think this was just a unified Soviet machine operating perfectly to crush the Americans.
You would think that.
But as we get into the final rounds of the tournament, specifically round 27, the Cold War narrative completely breaks down into something much darker. Personal betrayals.
This is where the human element just totally overtakes the geopolitical one. By round 27, Petrosian, Geller, and Keres are at the top of the leaderboard. But Petrosian and Geller are very close friends. They form this tight, impenetrable clique.
And Keres is left out.
Right, Keres, despite being from the Soviet Union, is the odd man out in their personal dynamic.
And the pressure cooker of this 2-month tournament creates such extreme paranoia that Petrosian and Geller decide they want to freeze out their own teammate. They want Keres to lose his shot at the World Championship.
It's wild. So Keres had an adjourned game against the American player, Paul Benko.
An adjourned game, for those who don't know, means they ran out of time for the session, sealed the next move in an envelope, and planned to resume play the next day.
Right. And in the era before computers, this meant players would stay up all night with their seconds, their assistants frantically analyzing the board position to find the best continuation.
So Keres is up all night analyzing how to win. Benko is analyzing how to hold on for a draw. And then there is an unbelievable knock on Benko's hotel room door.
It's Petrosian and Geller,
Oh my God.
two of the top Soviet grandmasters, secretly visiting the room of an American player to offer him their elite chess analysis on how to secure a draw against their own Soviet teammate.
You literally cannot write a better spy thriller than this. Let's pause and just look at the sheer mind-boggling danger of this situation.
Yeah.
Benko was not just an American player. He was a Hungarian refugee. He literally fled his home country to escape the communist regime. Under normal circumstances, Soviet citizens were strictly forbidden from having any unauthorized contact with a defector like him.
The risk they were taking was immense. If the Soviet authorities found out that two of their leading cultural ambassadors were secretly fraternizing with a defector specifically to sabotage another Soviet citizen's chances of winning the consequences back in Moscow, would have been severe.
Just shows how deep the personal rivalries ran. They wanted Keres to fail so badly they risked treason. So what happened? They give Benko the secret analysis. Does he use it to crush Keres?
Well, this is where the story provides a hilarious anticlimax.
Oh.
They walk in, offer their help, and Benko, who was a very serious analyst in his own right, essentially says, "Thanks, but I already figured it out."
You're kidding?
Nope. Showed them his own notes, which matched theirs. They agreed his plan was solid, wished him luck, and left.
So Benko didn't even need the Soviets' help in the first place. You'd think he'd be the hero of the American camp for standing his ground against Keres, but the American team was actually imploding on its own.
Yeah, the claustrophobia of the environment was breaking everyone down. The tension got so high that Paul Benko actually struck Bobby Fischer during the tournament.
We're talking about chess grandmasters in a tropical paradise, and it devolves into a literal fist fight. What on earth caused that?
It stemmed from a bitter misunderstanding over their support staff. The Americans had a grandmaster named Arthur Bisky there acting as a second.
Okay.
Benku believed that Bisquier was sent to Curaçao to help both American participants equally with their game analysis. Fischer, however, basically claimed Bisquier entirely for himself and refused to share his services.
Which honestly feels very on brand for 19-year-old Bobby Fischer.
Right.
But there was also bad blood from the actual games, wasn't there?
Oh, definitely. Remember how Fischer lost his first 2 games? One of those losses in round 2 was to Pal Benko. Yeah, and after that game, Fischer bitterly complained to Benko, whining, "You ruined my chances!"
Wow.
It implies this ridiculous sense of entitlement, as if Benko was supposed to just roll over and let him win because he was the American prodigy. So between the hoarding of the second and the bitter comments, the friction just boiled over into a physical altercation.
Just a complete pressure cooker, the heat, the length of the tournament, the isolation on this island, the lack of support, everyone is just snapping. But amidst all this chaos, the cheating accusations, the hospital visits, the midnight betrayals, the fistfights, someone actually had to win the tournament.
And that winner was Tigran Petrosian. He navigated the entire 28 rounds unbeaten.
Incredible.
He paced himself perfectly, leaning on that physical stamina he built up on the ski slopes, and he played in a deeply positional, almost uncrackable style, reminiscent of the great early 20th century champion Capablanca.
Wait, you mentioned he played in a deeply positional style like Capablanca. What does that actually mean for the guy sitting across the board from him?
It means he wasn't looking for flashy, aggressive attacks that expend a ton of mental energy. Instead, he was slowly strangling his opponents by controlling space and minimizing risk.
Okay, guys.
He basically made himself an uncrackable fortress. He finished half a point ahead of the field, securing his absolute right to challenge Botvinnik.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the drama of Curaçao, what is the actual legacy of this wild event for you to take away?
The legacy of Curaçao is monumental because it actually forced a structural change to the entire sport of chess.
Really? How so?
Well, Fischer's loud public outrage over the Soviet draw combine could not be ignored by FID, the International Chess Federation. They realized that a long round-robin tournament was just too susceptible to this kind of collusion.
So they changed the rules.
Exactly. Because of what happened on this tiny island, FID completely abolished the Candidates Tournament format. They replaced it with a series of head-to-head candidates matches.
That makes sense.
In a one-on-one match, you can't rely on your friends to draw with you to save energy. You have to beat the person sitting across from you.
Which is how we got the modern era of World Championship chess. I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We talked at the very beginning about the sheer physical toll of playing in 34-degree heat with 100% humidity. Today, elite chess players are backed by supercomputers, neural networks, perfectly optimized diets, and teams of sports psychologists.
Right, it's a whole science now.
But if we drop today's hyper-optimized champions into the unair-conditioned, unregulated, grueling swamp of the 1962 Curaçao environment, could they survive it? Does modern sports science make players unequivocally better? Or did the brutal physical survival conditions of the past forge a completely different, raw kind of genius that we've just lost in the modern era?
It's a fascinating question because sometimes the measure of a champion isn't just the accuracy of their moves, but what they're actually willing to endure to make them.
Something to think about the next time you're sweating it out. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.
В Москву возвратился победитель турнира претендентов на звание чемпиона мира по шахматам гроссмейстер Тигран Петросян. Родные и друзья-москвичи тепло встретили своего земляка, добившегося замечательного успеха в труднейшем состязании 8 сильнейших шахматистов мира.
Мой успех – это успех всех советских шахматистов, успех, конечно, москвичей. Мне очень приятно, что после некоторого перерыва матч на первенство мира встретится опять представители столицы. Чемпион мира Михаил Моисеевич Ботвинник встретится, так сказать, с молодым, сравнительно молодым москвичом со мной. Буду готовиться к матчу. По традиции, 15 марта будущего года начнется наш матч на первенство мира.